Hi everyone, I'm Alex the Flute Nerd, and today I'm going to chat about how we can get the most out of our flute practicing by getting better at assessing our own playing. In this video, I'll be sharing some important tips that will help you learn how to assess your own playing in a healthy, constructive way. So, let's jump in. Practicing is not just about practicing diligently, but intelligently. And one of the most important aspects of practicing smartly is learning how to properly and objectively assess your own playing. But this is surprisingly hard to do well. As creatives, we far too easily slip from constructive, objective criticism into damaging negative self-talk. I like to think of self-assessment a bit like learning to become your own teacher. Think about what a teacher might point out as areas for improvement in your playing. For this exercise, it is important to imagine the best kind of teacher, an encouraging, supportive, while still helpful teacher, not one of the whiplash variety. This self-reflection isn't about critiquing your own playing. It's about learning to listen with intent so that you can identify what needs improvement and target your practice accordingly. So why do we need to learn how to assess our own playing? Learning to listen to and evaluate your own playing is super important if you want to improve. Of course, it is important for those who are learning on their own, but even if you have a private teacher and are getting regular feedback on your playing, if you can't approach your own playing objectively in your practice, you'll struggle to effectively implement any suggested changes. By actively listening to and evaluating your own performances, you develop a keen ear for detail. Acknowledging what you do well boosts your confidence, while pinpointing weaknesses turns them into clear goals. You'll learn to identify your specific areas for improvement, and that will allow you to tailor your flute practice routine and address those needs directly. It's about learning to listen to your own playing objectively, identifying weaknesses, and also acknowledging your strengths. As you start developing your ear and your self-assessment skills, I feel it's worth taking a quick moment to stress that there is a very fine line between constructive criticism and harmful negative self-talk. A certain level of self-critique is essential for identifying areas of improvement, but it is just as important to not be overly harsh on yourself, and knowing where that line is drawn can be hard to determine. In fact, there are studies that show that excessive self-criticism is linked to decreased motivation, poor self-control, and heightened procrastination. Rather than propelling your progress, self-criticism actually triggers a state of inhibition in your brain, hindering your ability to take decisive action towards achieving your goals. So what exactly is the difference between self-criticism and self-assessment? It really boils down to mindset and the intention behind them. Negative self-talk is often a closed or fixed mindset. It is emotional, general, vague, and self-limiting, which means that it doesn't allow for growth or progress. Here are some examples of self-criticism in the practice room. I suck at this piece. I can't ever get that run right. My sound is awful. I'll never be able to make that in one breath. On the other hand, effective self-assessment is much more open. It recognizes that it takes work to succeed, but that success is always possible with time and effort. I'd say that there are two important factors that will help change any negative self-talk into something more constructive. Number one, always aim to be as specific as possible. You can't suck at this piece. I'm sure there are some bits you are okay with, but you might find certain aspects of it difficult, so identify exactly what those are. Number two, rephrase any statement to allow for future improvement. Using words like can't or never have a psychological effect of closing off your brain. So instead of saying, I'll never be able to get that run right, say something like, I struggled with this run, but I have some exercises that should help with that. This recognizes your limitation while also allowing for future growth. Now that you know why it's so important, let's dive into a few tips that will help you effectively assess your own playing in a constructive and healthy way. The first step is to get comfortable recording yourself. While playing, we have to juggle thinking about so many different things that we don't really have the brain space to listen. But when we listen back to a recording, it is so much easier to spot things that either went well or need some work. Record yourself regularly and playing a variety of exercises and pieces. For a bonus tip, hold on to your recordings as they are a great boost to the self-confidence. Often our improvement is so gradual that we don't always notice it until after you listen back to an old recording of yourself. And then it's just like, wow, I'm so much better. This is a bit like how you never notice yourself getting older until you look back at an old photo. We also want to take emotion out of the equation. Remember that we need to be careful about allowing negative self-talk to creep in as we start listening to our playing more carefully. Things like, I suck at this, or I'll never get this right. Often, these criticisms are just emotional responses, and the more that we pander to our emotions, the more likely we aren't really assessing what's actually going on. If we don't understand why we're struggling, we won't be able to fix it, which means we'll end up feeding right back into that original emotion, and round we go. Instead, try to focus on the objective aspects of your playing rather than allowing your emotions to turn your playing into value judgments. I am going to say this nice and loud. Your ability is not a reflection of your self-worth. Every single one of us, including myself, needs this as a poster on the wall of their practice room with huge writing. So for example, if you messed up a run, find out exactly what happened, which note went wrong. By concentrating on concrete facts rather than subjective feelings, you can more easily identify what's going on and figure out how to fix it. Adopting a growth mindset is also important. Please excuse the silly psychology jargon, but all this means is that we view challenges as learning opportunities, not as personal failings, which sort of follows on from our previous tip because our emotional brain loves to tell us how much we suck at things. It's important to recognize that it takes work to succeed, that success is always possible with time and effort, and that our creative powers are not limited and are always developing. The idea is really about changing how you approach your practice, aiming for progress. It's not about being perfect, it's about getting better step by step. Taking time to reflect on your performance experiences is another great way to develop your self-assessment skills. Every performance, big or small, is packed full of lessons. And by performance, I mean every kind of performance, whether it's a recital, recording a video, or playing a snippet of something for a family member. Basically, anything that isn't practice. After a performance, take some time to think about it. What parts felt like they went really well? Where did you stumble? Make sure you make a mental note of both moments of comfort and discomfort. Ask yourself what challenged me and how did I handle it? What will I do differently next time? Don't forget that the point isn't about dwelling on what went wrong, but trying to learn something about your playing. As we start assessing our own playing with a view of getting better, it's important to make sure that we have realistic expectations. It sounds obvious, right? But you would be surprised how many times I see students holding themselves to ridiculous, unachievable expectations. Remind yourself of where you are in your journey and adjust your expectations accordingly. How long have you been playing? If it's only been a couple years, you can't reasonably beat yourself up if you don't sound like Denis Buryakov or have fingers as fast as Jasmine Joy. How much time are you able to find for practicing throughout the week? If you don't have much time to practice, you can still get better, but it will be slower. So set goals that reflect your journey and the time that you can commit for practicing. And remember, small achievable milestones are the building blocks of progress. One of the best things that you can do in your practice as you learn to listen more intently is to stay curious. Always approach your practice like a scientist and imagine that each exercise is an experiment. This way you give yourself room for trial and error. By staying curious in your practice, for example, asking yourself why you made a mistake rather than beating yourself up over it, means that you can be objective and acknowledge when things aren't going well, but it will also allow you to see those mistakes as an opportunity to learn and explore. Don't let mistakes or stumbling blocks set you back. Instead, just acknowledge them, try to figure out objectively why they happened, and try again. Remember that practice is always about progress, not perfection. As you begin to tune more intentionally into your playing, make sure that you recognize and celebrate that progress. There is no end point to learning the flute. We're only ever striving to just be better than yesterday. Learning to approach your practice more intentionally and objectively is one of the fastest ways to progress, and being able to self-evaluate your own playing is super important. But sometimes it is worth getting outside help in the form of a teacher or peers. A good teacher should be able to not only help you identify your areas of improvement, but to equip you with the tools to refine your own self-assessment skills so that you can get more out of your practice time between lessons. Additionally, connecting with a supportive community of fellow flutists can also be really helpful. That's exactly why I created the Flute Nerd Lab, a learning platform and community designed for flutists of all levels. Inside this community, members get personalized feedback from both me and their peers, which helps them develop their own self-assessment skills. In addition, you also get access to lots of live events and practice challenges, so check the link in the description for more information or to join us. If you found this video helpful, please hit that like button and share widely. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so that you get notifications of the latest videos as I release them. Happy fluting, friends!